ever go in one direction. So I might suggest, if you see a stop that you absolutely love, maybe try it, because you're going to have to go all the way around to get quite a story behind that photograph. And they will see each other again for another 49.5 years. And my friends, the original photographer brought them together. This is San Diego without the beach. Today, beautiful San Diego. Imagine, it's the year 1867. California's been a state 17 years since 1850. There's nothing here except for one lone ship's pier. Just one pier. The only village is Old Town San Diego, where you'll be going later in the day. When ships bring goods, services, supplies, passengers here, they have to get on wagons or stages. It takes almost 10 hours to go to Old Town. Well, a wealthy California businessman living in San Francisco by the name of Alonzo Horton knows that makes no sense. So he comes down here to build this. Nobody wants all this land. They hate it. So they have a land auction here for Horton. He wins every bid because he's the only one bidding. And he purchases all of this over 865 acres. His final purchase price, $250. That's about 33 cents an acre. Wow. And that was a steal even back then. And he built all of this. This is what we call the Gaslamp Quarter, named these Gaslamp streetlights. The main street's on your left, about a block away. Okay, this is our Gaslamp Quarter stop. Trolley comes by every 20 minutes. You're one of us. Our San Diego Quarter, it was originally known as the Stingery. How did he get the name Stingery? The early sailors. You're right, another piazza, very small but significant, very poignant this weekend. That is Piazza Basilone that honors the Italian and Eagle our forces. You'll see the bus of the United States serving John Basilone. He's the first recipient that will honor during World War II. He was a U.S. Marine, having served in the Army first.
Bluetooth